right. Hello and welcome in to another episode of the Fantasy Forecast. We're here again with our college football specialist, Kenny,
Hey guys, how you doing? Good to
and
be
our
back.
co-host, Matt.
What's up, guy?
All right, and we're gonna get into the top five NFL running back prospects for the 2024 draft. So we're gonna break this up per player, and we're gonna start with our first ranked running back for the 2024 NFL draft class. So, Kenny, take us away.
Yeah, man. Really happy and excited to talk about this draft class. I think we have a lot of good running backs, maybe not as deep as we saw previously in the last year. Obviously, with the two guys that went at top, going to Atlanta, going to Detroit, and really kind of breaking off from what we've seen from traditional running backs. I'm excited still to talk about him. Blake Corum is going to be my number one running back out of Michigan. Big 12, all first team running back. Listen, I understand the size might throw a little people off about how he could fit into an NFL system, but when you look at the guy's production over the last 4 years, I mean, he's arguably started since he was a freshman. Now I know he was splitting carries, and then him and Donovan Edwards got into it. They started to mesh and show that unique tandem that they had that really kind of took down the empire that was Ohio State. But 1,245 yards over the last year, 27 touchdowns, and let's be honest, people want to undercut Blake Corum's size, but 27 touchdowns. 14 of those were under 10 yards. We'd love to see how well this guy does in the trenches. And I think that's something that a lot of people want to, kind of throw in his face. But the guy is just productive. He comes out of a powerhouse system at St. Francis out of Baltimore. If you know anything about that program, and Boji, who is now at at Charlotte University, who used to be on the Michigan staff, there's a long lineage of just tough guys that have been in there, and to see what Blake Corum has done, not only just from a rushing perspective, but just overall as a leader on that team. The guy is special. I mean, the guy goes head to head, toe to toe with any one of his teammates. They all respect him. They all understand that he's team focused first and me last. But more so than anything, when you really get into how he plays, he kind of runs with that attitude, right? I'm the leader. I'm going to slash. I'm going to make a cut when the appropriate time is placed. I think the hand signals that he threw up in the Ohio State game for his first fallen comrade and Zach Zinter was truly special. And there's certain things like that just galvanize the team. But more so when you get into how his running style really goes, the guy's footwork behind the line of scrimmage is just elite. It might be due to the fact that he is short in stature, but the fact that he's able to cut on a dime and then still break away and break arm tackles consistently is something that just can't be ignored.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't have him up that high. I had to Corum a little bit further down my list, but I do really like Corum, and I think he's somebody that in the right situation can be um, a very good player. If he's in the right offense. I do have a couple of things that I want to ask you about because the reasons that I ranked him a little lower. Um, it wasn't so much his size as it was his age. I mean, at running back, right? You get into the guys coming out that are 23 years old. Najee Harris, I guess, was 22 when he got picked in the first round, but there just aren't that many guys that are 23 years old that get picked high or that are considered the top back in their class. So can you speak on his age a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, to talk about 4 years playing there at Michigan, 675 carries, 3,800 yards over those 4 years, right? So
Big
we're talking
workload.
about a high mileage usage there with Blake Corum. The thing that I think that really separates him is that, he went through kind of a down year there in his junior year where suffering with some ankle problems, trying to get right. But then he splashes back with 27 touchdowns in the next year, right? So he's putting in the work. He's getting into the medical room. He's doing whatever it takes to get himself right. And at the same time, you still see the explosiveness. The play I go back to is the Penn State game, right? Cuts it off the right side, cuts back to the left, cuts back to the right, takes it down the sideline, almost houses it, right? Basically breaks open the game against one of the top competitors in the Big Ten. And that's what I like about this guy: his mental toughness, his charisma, and the fact that he's able to galvanize the guys around him.
Yeah, I had Corum at 4 just because I typically go for like the higher ceiling athlete
Mhm.
type guys, which I'm sure those couple guys that we'll talk about in front of him. But the more I watched him, the more it just kind of took me back to watching Michigan games and just loving this guy. Like he is awesome. And every time I see it, I'm like, but his size. And like Trevor said, like he's got a lot of miles, but I forget what the stat was, but it was something like with short yardage success and like goal line work. It was like even though he doesn't look like that typical like bulldozer guy, he just finds a way to always grind out like 3 or 4 yards, like almost
Yeah.
like he doesn't look like a Frank Gore, but like kind of like how he was in that regard. But yeah, man, he's got such good vision and sees the way the defense is set up so well that I think he's got a really high floor. I know that's kind of dangerous to say with the NFL and a guy under 5'8". I know we always talk about that, but like, man, I think he could be good. And obviously the kind of the cheap one was to take him to the Chargers, but now they've also signed J.K. Dobbins. So we'll see where he ends up. But uh, yeah, I'm excited for this guy. I didn't expect you to have him at 1. He's one of those guys that I've seen anywhere from there to like 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to hear kind of your thoughts on especially the intangibles, like stuff that can't be taught.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say is that obviously the pass catching, and obviously that's not going to happen with when you're at a Michigan offense and you're playing running back, right? Is there's not a lot of catches out of the backfield, but
Mhm.
the way in which this guy shifts and moves his body, I think that he's able to run some of those angle routes and cut routes that will be able to get him open. We saw that in the Alabama game there in the college football playoff.
Yeah, and if anybody is looking for a size comp, I mean, he almost lines up perfectly with Maurice Jones-Drew. I mean,
There
their
it is.
height and weight is very, very close. It's within an inch, within 10 pounds. So
Mm.
we've seen it work in the NFL, and like you said, very productive college player. And I expect him to go, the day 2, but probably day 3 pick. And you talked about how you see him up at 1 or you see him up down at 7. I think that speaks to the disparity at running back and how deep maybe the class is, but not
Mhm.
how top heavy it is. And so, depending on who you ask, I think it's going to be, interesting to see as we lead up to the draft, like if we get any sort of buzz on where these guys are going to go or what order they're going to go in, or if somebody really falls in love with one of these running backs and it gets into the media. So it's gonna be fun to watch. So any last words on Corum?
No, I totally agree with you on that point, Trevor. I think it's really tough to place these running backs this year. Obviously, with the deep O line class, the deep DB class that we're seeing, there's a lot of needs outside of the running back position, and we know kind of what the running back position has been going through over the last 2 years. So, hard to place him, but I do like his production, and I think that he can make some impact plays in next year.
All right, and with that, that is our RB1 for the 2024 draft class.